Oh, I have to be honest. This is something I never thought I'd be doing again. If you are claustrophobic, this would not be the profession for you. But as we come down, the pits of hell. Well, it wouldn't be an adventure if there wasn't something that goes partially wrong. Well, it's been quite some time since I filmed a location like this. But this is a location I'm not really a stranger of because I filmed it for the first time nearly 7 years ago. But the main difference between that video and this one is my camera. The camera I now film with does significantly better in darker low light conditions. So I wanted to bring you back for two reasons. Number one is to see if anything has changed down there. Number two is to give you a look at it with more clarity. If you like to explore it as well, just come along with me. Old bucket. And this is how I remember it. Not the most fun way to come in here, but doable. Well, this is the place I didn't think I'd ever be returning to. But there's a couple things I could tell you about it. Number one is that there is some pretty interesting features down here. We're going to see roots coming down. There's some walled off areas and some dangerous areas, which I will tell you more about once we do get to those areas. But I'm going to give you a couple different shots, handheld, but also like this, showing me walking around so you get a good sense of scale with this location, with me walking in it. It's also considerably warmer down here than outside. I will get you a temperature reading a little bit later. It's been a while since I've done this, and crawling like this, although I'm capable of it, may cause me to get a little bit winded, so just bear with me with that. With that being said, it's still how I remember it. The entrance or the portal is usually the most dangerous location. So if that's still open, I think we're gonna be okay going further back. So without wasting more time, let's explore this unique place. So with my light off, this is what it looks like where we just came down. Big rocky buildup. Some bigger than others, some smaller than others, but we're now down here. We can stand straight up. This is looking obviously into the darkness. I do have a few different lights with me, my headlamp, which I'll turn on right now. As you can see, there is a root system down here. This is one of the unique features that I remember coming upon when I explored this, is that there's roots growing through the rocks from the surface above. It's pretty unique, pretty interesting. And there is the, what would be the coal seam right there, or the vein of coal. Size comparison to my hand, it's not very big, maybe 2.5 feet tall. And they would have been mining anthracite coal down here that are known as the black diamond. So let's continue on and see what else we could discover or rediscover from nearly 7 years ago. Just how I remember it. I did want to show you that there are some different ways to go down here. So we do have a room right here. And then we come over here, we have the main haulage tunnel. And then as we continue over here, another room or chamber here. This is going to be somewhat of a repeating pattern in this location, where there's going to be different offsets, different rooms. And although for the most part I am familiar with this location, it has been 7 years. And the way I'm going to explore it is a way that I've learned from others, and what is known as the right hand rule. And what that basically consists of is if you were to look at your hand and you trace your thumbs, or your fingers, I should say, to the right, each time you come out, you're turning right. So when we came down the opening here, this is our first right-hand turn. I'm going to turn in here, explore it. When we come out, we'll be turning right, going down there, and so on and so forth. We'll keep turning right. That'll eventually bring us into a loop and bring us back to the beginning here. So, like I said, I am fairly comfortable and confident where I'm going, but just to extra precautionary, to play extra safe, we are going to follow the right-hand rule, which is not foolproof, but it's better than just wandering aimlessly. So I'm going to grab you guys. We'll go back here a little bit. It doesn't go very far, but just to show you what it's like, and then we'll continue down. I actually switched the camera to low light mode, so it's going to give you the best optimal viewing experience. Just to show you the vein here, and I'm glad I'm wearing a hard hat because there's some low top here, or low back, as I like to call it. And the reason they call it the back is because typically when the miners are hunched over, picking and drilling, the top or the ceiling is to their back. So mine terminology is known as the back, sometimes the top, but it is simply the roof or the ceiling if you want to put it in layman's terms. So this looks like it was an exploratory hole where they were chasing the vein, and one of two things happened. Either they just ceased production of this mine, or they discovered that the vein is not opening back up to anything larger than what we see. That is basically a crawl space right there, and I will demonstrate what it's like to be up there, because it would be pretty cramped conditions. Wouldn't be fun at all, but to get the product, well, you have to do what's necessary to achieve it. So, just to show you, I am 5'11", roughly between 220, 230 pounds. Not a whole lot of room at all. You're basically either on your stomach, probably on your back, or on your side with a drill, or to just basically scrape the material into either the floor or in a waiting car or bucket. So, if you were claustrophobic, this would not be the profession for you. All right, coming back out, we're turning right. And again, this is the main haulage tunnel. And a couple things to point out as we make our way through is, number one, is that you could see indentations in the ground going across. Those were for ties because there was rail down here. They would have used narrow gauge rail and mine carts for either hauling out waste rock and or coal. And definitely have to hunch over down here. Not terrible conditions, but not ideal. Some areas are taller than others. Like right here on the left-hand side, I could stand straight up. And you may or may not be able to hear, there is reverberation. There is an echo. That is a good sign. That is strong, solid material. Very little chance of it fracturing or collapsing. So hearing your echo, as they say, is always a good thing. And looking back where we came from, that's the entrance up there. You can see just a little bit of light. Off to the side here is one of many makeshift walls. These were purposely put in place. And usually one of two reasons. Number one is for controlling airflow, so that there is no oxygen going into an area that doesn't need to be. Number two could be a dangerous area back there with collapse. and they don't want anyone going back there, or something entirely else. But I would say probably for airflow. Now you can see the bedrock here comes up a few feet, and then there's a shelf, and that shelf is where they extracted the coal from. So, like I said, this is a really small vein of coal. They didn't remove it all, but it probably wasn't very profitable to take out that small vein like that. Another tie right there, spike nailed into it. And this is a timber, sometimes known as a stall. And the one thing to point out is that you can see the porcelain insulator for knob and tube wiring, most likely either for running electricity down here or power for a mine locomotive. And this is a little worked out area. Goes back maybe 20, 25 feet. Little tiny stall right there. I'm sorry about the shadow. I'm trying to avoid that. But again, crawl space, that's all it is. Doesn't look like it goes anywhere. I'm gonna press ahead a little bit. But I have to be honest, this is not something I ever thought I'd be doing again. But here I am. Okay, so that area goes back about 40, 50 feet at least, from what I could see, but it is cramped conditions. There's 2 bottles someone placed here in a bucket. It's definitely doable to go back there, although I'm not wearing coveralls. I don't feel like getting covered today, nor breaking my back, but I don't know if it goes beyond what I could see, but someone's been back there. It is definitely doable. It's also a rockfall area too. Then we come over here, we do have a few interesting things. There is a big tie right here with a plate nailed into it. Some spikes coming out of it with a hole. Some more broken stalls right there. And then a walled off area right here. And another bucket rotted out. I'm pretty certain this was for airflow that they put these here. A lot of rotted timbers down here. Just came from that direction. Off to the right there is where the bucket is, and another short off wall. Another bucket right here in front of us. Another wall. And then across from that, another worked out area. I am pretty winded. Up until now I have been hunched over, so it's not been great for breathing. But the good news is there's a high back here, a high top. And I can stand straight up with plenty of room. See some of these timbers, stalls that are, that one's in better shape than this one obviously. Just wedged up there. Now, some of you who may not be aware may be wondering what these are for. Well, they do serve 2 purposes. One is more important than the other. Some think that these are just to hold up the ceiling, the top. That's really not the case. A tree trunk can't hold up the weight of the earth. They can, though, help shore up a possibly loose area. More importantly, these are alarms. If the top was to start pushing, these would bust and break and pop and bang and alert miners know that, hey, there's something going on, and if these are crushing, you need to get out of here. So these were basically an alarm system for the miners, letting them know that there might be a collapse about to happen. That's more or less what they're for, but some of them can be just for shoring up a loose piece of material. On the ground here, we do have, looks like remnants of a box. Could have been a dynamite box, which are commonly found in these mines. And in this worked out area, as I'll show you, let me kill my lamp. You can see this one is rough looking. I don't think we're too far from the surface. There are roots coming through, but there are large slabs laying on the ground. The top is not stable. And if I do call it the top, it's just easier for me. But again, it is known as the back primarily. But again, not stable conditions. All these have fallen. A lot of loose material, probably shale. And even if it was more open up, I don't think I would go back there, just knowing it is prone to collapse based on the evidence right in front of us. We have reached a fork in the road. Fork to the left, fork to the right. Well, if you're paying attention to what I said earlier, you already know which direction we're going. We're going to follow right-hand rules, so we're going to stick to the right-hand side. And I don't remember if we could keep going because it doesn't look all that great up ahead. But there are definitely more ties here on the ground where rails would have been, and a few artifacts as well that others have placed in clear line of sight, including a glow stick. That's commonly used with explorers. They leave glow sticks in areas so they could find their way back. It's basically like following the breadcrumbs. And in case you're curious, well, this is what it means to be entering the darkness. Total blackout. Can't even see your hand in front of your face. I do remember this artifact. This is something that we found nearly 7 years ago when we were here. It is an old can. And I remember when we touched it, the handle broke off, which you can see right there. Holes in the bottom. Good to see it's still here. This area is poor condition. Don't really need to explain why. You could clearly see it's really unstable. There's even a stall back there surrounded by a pile of rocks. This area looks like it may go off 20 to 30 feet at the most. Unless it does open up back there, I can't tell. But we do have a large collapse down here. And from my recollection, I don't remember if we could go over and beyond it. So I'm going to find out for myself. I'm going to leave you guys here. I'm going to climb up there, head on back, and see if it does keep going. If not, we're going to turn around, make our right-hand turn, and head down to the other fork in the road. It's wet and slippery. I think it keeps going. Okay, I think I remember what this is. It does open up back here, but this may lead to the dangerous area that I hinted at before. We're going to turn around and take the fork on the other side, and that will confirm whether or not this is the dangerous area. If that leads me to the area that I'm thinking of, well, then the dangerous area is on that side. If that is, we'll come back and press on. I have to say though, it is really damp down here and muggy, and a musty smell in the air. I did bring my thermal gun, so I'm going to get you a temperature reading in just a few moments. And there is airflow, but it's very minimal. It's obviously closer to the surface. But that is due to the temperature. It's in the lower to mid 40s outside. I'm guessing it's around the mid 50s down here. If it was much colder or much warmer, there would be stronger airflow, but it's not stagnant. I could see the moisture in my light. It is moving around, so that's good news. All right, so let's hang it right past these almost non-existent stalls. And we'll check door number 2. I'm gonna go down there first, check it out. If it is doable, I'll come back and get you. If not, we'll do plan B like I said. Well, I have some good news and some good news. Number 1 is that we can continue down door number 2. The second thing I forgot about is that this is my favorite section of this area, and I'm about to show you why. So right here, we could see remnants of a wall and most likely a door that went across here. There's also a drill hole right there. That's where they would have drilled and stuck in the dynamite to blast it. But you can see there's a pin here. A hinge would have sat on there. Remnants of a wall. There's an old mason jar right there. So they had this blocked off, not permanently, only, I guess you could say temporarily. Possibly for airflow. There may have been someone like I think they were known as mule boys who would have manned these doors when the mine cars or locomotives or even mules were coming back in the day. There's also significantly more ties in the ground of where rail would have been, but it's all ripped up. But here we have an area with some A-frames. I actually forget the proper terminology for it, so if I don't put it on the screen, let me know in the comments section, but it's basically a crossbeam with 2 supports holding it up. And that is basically for unstable areas. Again, it's more of an alarm system, also just a brace for any loose material to fall on people's heads. So they do have some A-framing here. Little exploratory pocket right here that is gobbed up. So what we see is a hand-laid stone wall. That's known as gobbing. And what that is when they get waste rock like this, which there's no coal in it, it's just waste material. Instead of hauling it all the way outside, wasting energy and resources, they form a wall with it. And it not only neatly gets it out of the way, but also serves as a purpose. In this purpose, they shored up a opening that we saw earlier, you know, with the concrete or the mortar. Well, this is just hand-laid stone. If you were to peel that back away, most likely would be an open area back there. So that's a good example of gobbing right there. And you can see the size of the timber right there. The wedge in place. Off to the right here, another open pocket. Again, doesn't go more than 30 feet back at the most from what I could see. I don't really have any, like I said, reason to crawl back there, especially if most of these do dead end. And then right here, more kind of raggedy support right here of a tiny timber stall, a cross piece, and some rock there. Oh, I'm gonna continue on, and down here we can actually stand up, which is good. Okay, stand straight up now. Another timber set here. Little tiny stalls right in the opening. This one goes back substantially farther. Let me get my other light. Yeah, that one goes back probably 40, 50 feet, if not further. But it's no more than 3 feet of clearance. If I ever do come back here, I will definitely bring coveralls and knee pads and explore some of these offshoots. And there's looking back where we just came from. A lot of timbers in this area. I just found this laying here. It actually looks like it may be part of that door or gate that I mentioned earlier where there was a pin. I said a hinge would have sat on it. Looks like a fence post with some hinges coming off of it. That may or may not have been for the area that we saw back there. So we were just over there looking at that area. Directly across is another area of some big rock fall. Some of these rocks are the size of small vehicles. And it just looks really sketchy. Although there's more room to crawl back there, it's not worth it for me. You can see, looks like a column right here almost, or a pillar. Pretty large sized timber right there. And that column resting on top of it. But we're going to continue a bit further. So off to the right, it goes back here, not very far, nor does it to the left. I'm going to bring it back there anyways to show you, because this is primarily as far as we could go in this area. Another rotted bucket right there. Another clear evident seam of coal. Piece of black diamond. Another collapsed area off to the right, which I can't see, it does keep going, but it's collapsed. Another timber set here, A-frame. And then a larger room back here. Pretty high top, about 7 foot. Good quality coal right here. Can show just the sheen of it off my light. High quality, hard, clean burning anthracite. So I was a bit mistaken. Option number one, door one, we could possibly keep going on. This way I thought was the safer route, and it was up until this point. Well, if you look above us here, we got a open, sloped out area. Combination of rock and coal mixed in right there. But as we come down, well, look at that. The pits of hell. Let me get my brighter light to show you so that you can see. That goes pretty steep. It's about a 45-degree angle. And I was down there once before, 7 years ago. Two reasons I'm not going down. Number one is that I'm by myself. I don't know what risk could be involved 7 years later as far as loose, unstable material. The main reason, though, is I remember is that there's bad air down there. Now, with that being said, it's not bad air as far as like black damp, H2S, or extremely low oxygen, but it had lower oxygen than the rest of this location. For the most part, when I was here last time with my oxygen meter and the other one that was with me, we had average readings between 19 to 20, but right around 19. A couple drops here and there to the high 18s. Down there, it did drop below 18 in a couple areas. And that could spell disaster for a few reasons. Number one, it could just fatigue you severely where you just can't get enough oxygen and energy to make your way back out, especially climbing a steep ascent like that. And if you do hit a really low pocket or even a pocket of black damp or H2S, then it's game over. So I'm staying in areas where I know it's safe. And the reason I don't have a meter with me is because mine expired. I actually need to buy another one if I do continue to revisit these locations. Hard hat, extra lighting, supplies with me as far as food, water, stuff like that. I am covered, but I don't have an air meter with me or a multi-gas meter, which is highly suggested and needed for coal mines. Hard rock mines out west, not so much. These places are needed, but I do remember, and I've heard this location does have good air. That's why I did return without coming with an air meter or multi-gas meter, just for that reason. Obviously, things can change, and coming the right time of year as far as the temperature outside can play a major role. If you were to come when the outside temperature is just a few degrees different from the inside temperature, that takes away the airflow, and that could leave pockets of bad air or even gas. So we are stopping here. I just wanted to give you a look down there. If you want to see what that looks like, well, I will link the previous video down below. It does basically pinch out down there. I think it's collapsed where we couldn't continue on, but it was difficult getting down, even more difficult getting out. But with that being said, it is a pretty fascinating area. I'm going to retreat back to a more comfortable spot. I'm going to pull out my temperature gun, my thermal gun. We'll get some temperature readings, and after a little break of some water and a snack, we're going to head back the way we came and then make that final right by that walled off area with the roots hanging down. And I'll show you that room back there. Forgot to show you, we just came from back there where I was showing you the pits of hell, as I called it. Well, we forgot to make this right just to show you this terminated area as well. And this is a pretty bad collapse. Not to say you can't get over it, but for me, not worth the risk, not by myself. It does keep going back there, but again, risk versus reward, it's not there. Here's another area, excuse me, that was worked out. See some shoots there, may have been from a shaker shoot right there in front of us there. And then we do have a couple rotted stalls and it looks like almost like a pillar. They didn't mine this out to help support this area. It may actually open up around the other side of it. But one little problem I have is I misplaced my backpack. I think it's on the other side over here. Hopefully it is, but I don't have it with me. I don't know where I left it. Okay, there it is. Crisis averted. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me if I left it somewhere. Well, glad we're in a hard hat. I bumped that and that just fell down. It is a hot, sweaty, dirty adventure, but not complaining in the least. I figured out how much fun this is, but also how much of a workout it is. Well, let's pull out the thermal gun, get some temperature readings. I am sweating profusely. Put this on for now so you don't see my glistening head and blind you guys. I do have my lighting set up too in a way that hopefully gives you some good visuals looking up towards the exit or entrance. Load up to that wall behind me, and of course onto me. Without the lighting, it'd be impossible to film this. No matter how good your camera is, you do need some source of lighting. As I power this on, I'm going to stay quiet for a moment. I just basically want you to hear what I hear. It is just eerily quiet, just some dripping of water, and that's pretty much it. There's not a whole lot of life down here. Okay, so got the thermal gun up, and I was pretty close to the temperature. I'm going to take a snapshot there. 54 degrees up in that direction. See, I can actually put the laser on this, and down where we just came from, where the forks, yeah, I believe the forks in the road are down there. 53 degrees. So this shows a high and a low. High 55.5, low 52.5. So it's within 2-3 degrees of each other, averaging around 54 degrees. So it's a fairly constant, steady temperature. Let's see if any of these rocks that are damp. Yeah, just ambient temperature even on this rock right here above me, 54, 55 degrees. So it's at least 10 degrees difference from outside, which is safe enough. If it was going to be in the 50s today, wouldn't be advisable to come in here. There are a couple things I just wanted to share with you before we do continue on. Number one is, obviously this is not my first rodeo. Those of you who have been with me for a while know that I used to explore mines pretty frequently. I have a playlist of all the mines I explored. And although it's been quite some time since I filmed one for my channel, it doesn't mean I haven't been exploring them off camera. There are a few I had been to off camera, but I didn't film for various reasons. Some of them were upon request. Some I just didn't think were worthy of a video because they were just kind of a disappointment. But with talking to some friends who were, I guess you could say, in the industry, they got to having a conversation. They said, like, you guys, me specifically, I've gone to some pretty cool places, and it'd be nice to see you do one maybe once in a while. And I tossed that idea around, and that's where we are today. Now, although I have not filmed these locations on my channel, there are other channels out there who do. And the one I could mention, which many of you probably already know, is Phil from Amazing Pennsylvania. I never met him in person. We have conversed briefly a couple years ago when he first started getting his videos out, just kind of sharing some things with him about, things to look out for and things that are not advisable to showing, just kind of offering some free, friendly advice. Never met him. I heard a lot of good things about him. I'm not sure if we'll ever meet up. I'm not against it. Just the opportunity hasn't arose. Regardless, though, he's been to a lot of mines in Pennsylvania. I mean, I will say, he's done his homework. He's done his research. He either has access to a lot more materials than I do, or just knows the right people, or a combination of both. I don't know what it is, but he's been to a lot of mines. He's explored a lot of mines. He's went to some really, really risky, sketchy areas. Some places I probably wouldn't even go, but I give him credit. He's keeping it going. He hasn't, shied away from any naysayers about not doing it, and he is keeping history alive in the Pennsylvania coal region. So if you haven't checked out his channel and you want to see stuff like this through his perspective, just go to Amazing Pennsylvania, or I'll link it down below. Anyways, wrap up what I'm saying. I'm not bringing this back full time. This is not something I'm going to be doing regularly, but I'm not opposed to mixing them in once in a while. This one came to mind just because it's fairly easy to get to from parking. And from what I remember, like I said, it has some really neat features to it, but some dangers involved. I just didn't feel comfortable going beyond what I did today by myself. If I had someone else with me, especially someone with experience, obviously that'd be a different story, especially if I had a multi-gas meter. If I do continue to do this, though, semi-regularly, however often it is, I will have a gas meter. That's without a doubt. Even if it's just an O2 meter, but probably a multi-gas meter. I do have some friends of mine that do like doing this. They don't have YouTube channels, but they do like to explore. We have been into some mines together, like I said, just haven't filmed them, so they may or may not be coming along for some of those future videos. There is another location that I have already filmed too that I want to return to, just to give you an update on it. Not as big as this one, but I will say it's safer once you do get inside of it, if that makes sense. Since it's been quite a while, hopefully this is a nice breath of fresh air, bringing you back to some of my older days on YouTube of where I did this for the most part. This and abandoned stuff was the norm for a while. But with that being said, we're going to head back the direction we came, stay right-hand rules, and take that last right by the roots, go into that room, show you what that's like, because although it is walled off, it's not sealed off. So we can go in there. And then I'm going to be looking forward to getting back outside and cooling off because, like I said, I'm sweating profusely. Not only is it 55 degrees down here, but it's damp. Humidity is super high. The whole environment is just like a sponge, and it's just dripping of moisture. The mildew smell doesn't bother me, but it is definitely a dirty mine. So I'll take a few more minutes for myself, and then we will continue on towards the end. Well, I was going to take another temperature reading or two before I left. My thermal gun that I charged fully last night is dead. It won't turn on. This had a completely full battery. I've never even come close to using all the battery on this, and this won't power on. I'm hoping the images I took saved. I was going to at least show you on camera the imaging, but it's dead. It won't turn on. Well, hopefully it's not shot. I can't believe that. This gun never died on me before. And I only took 2 images with it, powered it off, and now it won't turn on. Well, it wouldn't be an adventure if there wasn't something that goes partially wrong. If that's the worst that happens, that's okay. Not a big deal. Well, we safely made it back. That's where we just came from. We're now at the intersection that I showed earlier, explaining about the right-hand rolls. The exit is right there. There's the daylight. And our last right-hand turn, which did bring us into a full circle, is right here with this gobbing, shored up wall that's not sealed. There's an opening here. I did go ahead and partially illuminate it just for some better visuals. And this room is essentially a room. From what I remember, it doesn't go very far. I think it does pinch out. But there's a lot of roots hanging down and a rotting, decaying smell as well. I think it's because we're closer to the surface and some of the decaying matter may be working its way down, at least the fumes of it. So let's head back here now and check this out. I do have another light there. Here's the back side of the gobbing. You see there's material built up behind it. There is another offshoot over here. That one goes back at least 40 feet. Definitely doable if you have knee pads and coveralls. May or may not open up to more workings. I don't think so though, because it's basically paralleling the main tunnel that we just returned upon. So it probably goes behind one of those short off walls that I was explaining for airflow. I'm fairly certain those walls would connect to back here. So that's basically what it looks like behind those sealed up air chamber walls. And aside from my shadows, you could see the amount of roots hanging down, coming right down from the surface. Some loose rocks as well. No echo in here. There is some loose rock fall, but for the most part, it's fairly stable. Just smells down here like decaying matter. Big rock fall right there. That one would hurt. Corner timber. It's like an exploratory pocket. The vein of coal does pinch out. It's probably why they stopped working right there. As I mentioned, this is probably not a very profitable mine because everything they have to take out that's not coal is costing them money and time. They don't make money on rock. That's why there's so many offshoots that are only crawl spaces, because they were just following the vein. More profitable to do that than to remove this over under burden. Oh, there's stronger breeze back here. Yeah, this is nearing the surface. I could feel a cool breeze from the outside. So we are near, 100% near the surface. Let's see, is there daylight coming through? I don't see daylight, but there is, without a doubt, coal there coming from the surface. You could probably make your way out of here if you have to in an emergency. That is all rock fall right there. I think that's purposely placed there to plug it up, as well as this stuff right here. A little cavity over here Well, yeah, it's at least closer to 10 degrees colder over here. I could probably, if my thermal gun would turn on, I could confirm that, but take my word for it, there's a breeze and it's much colder. Feels like air conditioning right here because it's colder outside than it is down here. So that's as far as this room goes. This most likely did exit out to the surface as either a secondary air chamber or a haulage area or something else. But it's 100% near the surface. I would say no more than 10 feet at the most until you were to reach the outside. So that's kind of good news if you were to get stuck down here. And that's looking back to the beginning of the room. That's where my light is. And we're gonna retrace our steps. And while I'm making my way back outside, I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the photo montage. Oh, it's good to be out into some fresh air and what feels like air conditioning. As I catch my breath, I do want to share a few final thoughts with you. Normally, I'm not this out of breath. I do pretty good with hiking and exploring and adventures, but these are not your normal conditions. Anyone who's a larger person knows that when you're bent over, for example, when you're tying your shoe, you have a harder time breathing or getting a full breath of air. That's what it's like down there about 60% of the time, where the ceiling is not high enough, the back is not high enough to stand straight up. So not only do you get a sore back and stiff neck, but you do get out of breath quicker and easier. But I am in one piece, and my hard hat saved me today on more than one occasion. Not only did I trigger a small collapse by bumping into it with my helmet in what was already a bad area, those rocks broke over my helmet and around me. Thankfully, it didn't hit the camera. This camera, although performs really well, it's not a rugged, durable camera like my action camera. This is something that could break very easily if one of those rocks were to hit it. It's dirty, but it's in one piece. But aside from that little collapse, I bumped my head more times than I can remember trying to stand up. And if I wasn't wearing that, I would have been gashed open, bleeding profusely. So out of all the safety things I could have brought, the hard hat was my number one tool. And so glad I brought that. I did avoid any real dangerous areas because I am by myself and because I don't have an O2 or multi-gas meter. The areas we went were perfectly fine. There was no dangers other than just some loose material and it being just a wet, dirty mine. I am really covered in material, but that's just how it is. And it's been, like I said, some time since I filmed a mine like this. 7 years almost for this one. Like I said, I have explored some in between that time, but it's been still a little bit of time since I've done one. I don't like being hunched over like that. I do prefer standing straight up, but not all of them are like that. Some of them are even lower than this and harder to navigate. If you have knee pads and coveralls, it makes your job that much easier. Lastly, I just want to say that hopefully the way I did it today allow you to see this much better than you've seen it before, at least on my channel. Not only with the better low light conditions, but the way I filmed the video with me walking away from the camera, showing you scale compared to me, explaining what I'm going to do as if you're down there with me. I always want you to feel like you're included, like you're involved, like you're hanging out with me when we do these adventures. And that's what I did to the best of my ability down here, is to, although it's time consuming, people sometimes think it's funny to just place the camera down and walk away, come back and get it and do it over and over again. I enjoy it. It tells a story. It shows you perspective and allows you to feel like you're, waiting there watching to see what I'm going to do next. The only tricky thing I ran into was lighting. My headlamp, although illuminated great for me to see, it was casting a shadow with the camera more often than not. Sometimes I caught it, sometimes I didn't. My two handheld lights shined really bright and far, but sometimes they're too bright and it washes out the image. So lighting can be tricky for conditions like this, especially with a camera that's sensitive to light. So the only thing I could have done differently was to bring one of my light panels, my LED light panels, but I didn't want to have to bring more gear than necessary. I made it work with what I have, but I'll keep that in mind for the future. Anyways, if you want to see more videos like this, mining ruins, mine tours, mine explorations, we'll have a playlist down below. And I hope you enjoyed this refreshed look at a place I once visited many years ago, and we're able to bring it to you in modern day. I had a great time. Hope you did as well, but I am severely due for a shower and a fresh pair of clothes. So take care, everyone. Stay safe. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.